Okay. Yo, what's going on, everybody? I was going to do a full-fledged video on this topic, but I decided there's going to be way too much to talk about with this topic. There's going to be a lot of foul language, a lot of insults, a lot of put-downs, so get ready. Because some of these eBayers, man, they're out of control, boy. A lot of eBayers are really out of control. All right. Yeah, I wanted to make a video about this particular topic for a while now, and I haven't done so. I might as well just do it in live stream form because there's going to be a lot to talk about, and there's no way I'm going to be able to fit this into a short form video. Because one of the things that I find the most frustrating is dealing with people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, especially and in particular on eBay. Because you have a lot of eBay jackasses that are out there that think they know better than you. It's because they're trying to profit off of you. What's going on, WSP? Welcome to this live stream. Yes, there will be a lot of swearing, cussing, all that sort of thing, so be ready, because I have a lot to say about this topic. What's going on, Pedro? Welcome to this live stream. We're going to get into some of my frustrations as I guess I want to call myself a professional eBayer now. I've been selling as an LLC for the past 2 years. As of this June, it'll be 2 full years since I started, man. And I got to just let fucking eBayers have it. But before I begin, if you're new to this channel, just to give you a little bit of background, you know, I usually talk about, recently there's been a lot of personal stuff going on behind the camera with myself. And this is the perfect topic for me to unleash some of that frustration as far as this topic is concerned to all of you. And I'm sure some of you are in the same boat like myself. So you want to help out the channel, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Many of you have already, so I appreciate that. Also subscribe to the channel. Typically I talk about toy collecting, jersey collecting, sneaker collecting, baseball cards, you know, various hobby topics, that sort of thing. Check out my eBay store if you want to help to support the channel. The link is in the description box below of this live stream. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, some of these fucking eBayers, let me tell you, man, if you looked at the thumbnail, that's your typical eBayer. You know, your big lol-cow Midwest overweight baseball hat wearing, you know, snuff chewing, you know, tobacco in the chin, you know, like the ones that you always see in Storage Wars, like the real dirt bags in our society that capitalize off of people dying and people losing their homes and shit. And like what you see in the Pokemon hobby with everybody ripping each other off and theft. You know, I get that there are people that are out there that are hustling, like with me. I do my eBay stuff as a way to supplement my income. I'm on a fixed income. Quick background on myself, real fast. I worked in union construction for 13 years, got vested, all that stuff, went to trade school for 5 years. God bless my father. He got me in 2001. I used to live in communist, socialist, it, what, who pronoun, rainbow, cross-dressing New York. And I volunteered my time over at the World Trade Center from September 12th to September 16th of 2001. As a result of the 5 days of me being down there, I suffered a lot of health issues. In 2011, I had to hang it up. Then a lot of things happened from that point on. Around 2015, I moved down to North Carolina here, where I've been now for the past 10 years. And I do this eBay stuff to supplement my income. As long as I'm within certain bounds, I'm allowed to do that. So with all that being said, it's been a wonderful thing. It helps put food on the table. It takes the financial burden off of me because, once again, I am on a fixed income. I had to fight long and hard in the courts and all that kind of shit, to get where I'm at, and I am going to sit on my perch. I am going to sit, on my throne. And you can't sit in a throne. There's no hole big enough to fit a guy like me. You sit on your chair, not in your chair. Proper English. It's like the idiots that say often. It's pronounced often. There's no such thing as a pre-order. You either reserve a thing or you don't. So you can tell where this is going to go already. We're going to correct a lot of society's bullshit here because nothing is for fucking free. Number one, I am a capitalist. All right, I do support the orange man, even though he's done a lot of dumb shit recently. Unfortunately, the ball got fumbled when it came to the Supreme Court decision with these tariffs. But knowing the great pumpkin that's out in the White House there, he's going to find a way. And he already is, and he's been touting it. Unfortunately, as a jersey collector, a lot of the jerseys I get, let's just say, from across the pond in Europe, from Bayern Munich, from Germany, for example, there are tariffs attached to them, unfortunately. Thank God a lot of the supplies and the baseball cards and the things I've been selling on eBay were all hopefully bought and sold here in the United States, in the great red, white, and blue, the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But tell that to the it, what, who cross-dressers that are constantly rioting out there, taunting ICE officers. So anyway, you know where I stand with a lot of things. So eBayers can be fucking cheap. I'm just going to say it point blank. I'm going to be very pragmatic here. They're fucking cheap, a lot of them. A lot of them do this professionally. And a lot of them think that... a lot of people think they're going to get shit for free. All right? And that's not how the world works. Everything costs something. This plastic sleeve costs something. These envelopes that I use for my baseball cards that I sell at my eBay store cost something. All right? It cost me money to buy the cup. It cost me money to have the refrigerator make this ice for me. I have to pay for the drink. Everything costs money. And people think they're going to get something for nothing. And that's not how it works. Over time, things do appreciate in value. But if they're personal items that I've paid for, I have every damn right to set my prices where I so choose to. For example, right now over at my eBay store, and anybody can go click on the link below, where you're going to see a Daniel Jones jersey, a New York Giants Daniel Jones jersey. That's a $400 Vapor Elite jersey that I paid for out of my own pocket. All right. And because the Giants have had quite a few bad seasons, last year they crashed out yet again. Cam Scattaboo got hurt. The Giants, their fourth quarters all of last season have just been awful. So whatever Daniel Jones jerseys I've had, I've sold on eBay successfully so far. And I've sold them anywhere between, I want to say $60 to $90 in that range. But, when it comes to certain jerseys, like American football jerseys, even though I'm wearing a Bayern Munich jersey from Germany, I tend to buy certain jerseys for certain reasons. Unfortunately, with soccer jerseys, depending on how you take care of them, the plastic material on these tends to deteriorate after about maybe 4 or 5 years of ownership. If you're not careful how you treat these, this plastic material literally turns to goo and gets sticky. So you have to really be careful how you wash these, what soaps you use, whether or not you dry them or not. You never put them in a dryer, for example. You hang dry them, you wash them in cold water. You use what I use, like Dreft baby detergent, because it has no chemicals, none of that stuff. So, you have to wash your stuff cleanly and you have to take care of this stuff. And I understand that these jerseys, and I've been collecting jerseys for well over 20 years. I literally have about 100 jerseys on my jersey and shoe rack right now. At least 100 jerseys. I've gone through jerseys left and right through the years, and I still am to this day. And recently, there are jerseys that are either too big on me because I lost a ton of weight because I was almost 300 pounds at one time. Now I'm down to about 190, 195-ish in that area on any given day because, I care enough about myself to lose the weight. Don't listen to the fucking, the ones that love to promote people being fat as healthy. That's not true at all. All right. Your chances of your triglyceride counts going up, your chances of a stroke and heart attack go up. You start suffering from all sorts of ailments and pains and torn ligaments and all that kind of stuff because your body's not made to carry all that redundant protoplasm, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. But the simple fact of the matter is that I've gone through a lot of jerseys over the years. And I'm not going to call myself an expert, but I'm well-rounded when it comes to my knowledge of a lot of these jerseys that I bought over the years, right? So, why is that light doing that? Come on, dude, don't. I hate this when that light flickers like that. There's really no way to control that, unfortunately. The LEDs will just make it worse. I think that's better right there, right? So anyway, but I've been through all kinds of jerseys: soccer, baseball, retro, vintage, player elite jerseys, like what they call them through Fanatics, for example. I have a bunch of Mitchell and Ness retro jerseys and stuff like that. So I would consider myself very knowledgeable as to how to identify counterfeit jerseys and that sort of thing. I talked about that in my previous live stream, how to identify fake Mitchell and Ness football and baseball jerseys because of the nature of the tags and the type of sizes that Mitchell and Ness does use. So I had some asshole I had two people now on eBay try to talk me down. I'm currently selling that Daniel Jones jersey, which I paid $400 for, if I recall. Maybe it was like 300 and something with the Fanatics bucks or whatever it is, because I do shop on Fanatics quite often. But I like to get jerseys that have longevity. That's why I take the time to either I don't get like the knockdown versions of jerseys, because these days Fanatics makes 3 tiers of jerseys. You have your elite jerseys, which are as close to what the players use on the field as humanly possible. Then you have your limited player jersey, which is your middle tier jersey. Especially like my New York Yankees jerseys, they don't have the names on the back. They're not supposed to, because that's not what they use on the field. But it's a higher quality jersey. And then you got your typical run-of-the-mill jersey. Like if you go to the mall and you go to Lids, you'll find Aaron Judge jerseys with his name on the back. Of course, the Yankees don't put the names on the back of their jersey because that's their tradition, to not have the names on the back. So you have 3 distinct tiers of jerseys today with Fanatics as far as football and baseball is concerned. They do this with football as well. You have your Vapor Elite or your Vapor Fuse jerseys. Those run, and the baseball elite jerseys are just as expensive. They're like $400. You can get them for a little cheaper if you go on Fanatics or MLB.com or NFL.com or your favorite team's website. Those are all sold through Fanatics. It's not sold just through the team itself. Those come directly from Fanatics. Fanatics are the ones that supply all the jerseys. If you see all the nonsense going on with the Boston Red Sox right now in their jersey, that's another ball dropped by the infamous Fanatics. But they do got good stuff, So you got your high tier jersey, your elite, which is as close to what the players wear as possible. So those can run anywhere between, if they have sales, $350 to about $400, in some cases $450. They're expensive, very expensive jerseys. I have a few of them, as a matter of fact. And then you'll have your mid-tier jersey, which has certain aspects of the elite jersey, but the material's a lot thinner. It's put together a lot cheaper. The stitching quality may be different. And then, of course, you got your fan jerseys, like the ones that go to the bar and stand outside smoking Marlboros and, trying to flirt with girls that they'll never have. You know what I mean? Those types of jerseys. So I tend to buy the higher end jerseys. The only ones I don't do that with are my soccer jerseys, because not only do they run about $60 to $70 more, in some cases $80 to $90 more, it's because they do have a shelf life because of this plastic rubberized heat transfer material that they use, that they literally have a heat press, that they press these letters and templates into the jerseys. You know, they literally melt these onto the jerseys. And because they're made of this weird material over the years, and I've had many of them, and you can look right now on eBay, there are a lot of people trying to sell Bayern Munich jerseys where what I call jersey rot, that the numbers have literally faded away and deteriorated. So that's why I buy the fan jerseys, you know, the replicas that they call, because they really don't have a low-end jersey. In Germany, as far as Bayern Munich is concerned, they only have two tiers. You have the authentic player versions, and then you have the ones that everybody else gets. So you got a little bit of history right there with the jerseys. So when it comes to my football and baseball jerseys, I tend to buy high-end, if not mid-tier. And those jerseys have certain price points. For example, right now, if you were to look up the preseason Aaron Judge black jersey that they're using right now, and they actually scored like, 18 runs today or something like that. Aaron Judge himself banged out 2 home runs. Spencer Jones shot a ball out of the ballpark today. You know, it was quite interesting to see this Yankees squad. They lost their first game. They won their second game today in the preseason, and everybody's preparing for the World Baseball Classic. But the Yankees have 2 all-black strips that they use in the preseason. One has the Yankee symbol on the chest. The other one says New York. And the away one has like a gray scheme on the back. And the home version of the preseason jersey has a white scheme on the back. So that goes to show you the kind of knowledge I have. The jock tag for that jersey will be right here. The player versions, the elite jerseys, are longer because they're meant to be tucked into the player's pants. So the elite jerseys emulate that quite well. You know, it's textured because it's supposed to wick away sweat off the body so that you're not drenched. Just like the elite versions of this jersey, for example. They run like $500 in Germany. And they're very, very thin. If you think soccer jerseys are thin, if you buy them from like soccer.com, World Soccer Shop, you know, places like that, or like I get them from soccer.com, you know, they're much thinner and much softer and can deteriorate quickly. Those are meant for your real collectors. For me, I understand that, you know, I want to have my cake and eat it too, but they do eventually deteriorate over time as far as the plastic details are concerned. You know, the patches on the sleeves here, these usually will crack. These are sporting ID patches. If you wash them in, you know, aggressive soaps or anything like that, or if you wring the jersey out, you actually increase your chances of cracking these rubberized felt jerseys, or what they call flock material. So there's some care that goes into that. But the elite jerseys, the player jerseys, can be super expensive. That's why they make the other 2 tiers, so that this way the fans can have their cake and eat it too. Those jerseys typically, as far as like the mid-range jerseys, run about $200. So if you were to Google in an Aaron Judge preseason jersey, whether it's the home or away versions, it's the old black strip, but either the New York on the front or the New York Yankees emblem on the front, they'll run about $179 at Fanatics. And then, of course, you got your run-of-the-mill, just who gives a damn? You go into some store in the mall, and they have, you know, a jersey hanging there with Aaron Judge's name on the back. Of course, they don't use the names. They usually go for like $100, $80, $90, whatever it is. So, you know, don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to jerseys. I've been collecting jerseys for well over 20 years. Unfortunately, in some live streams, I've had to flex my jersey collection. And even just now, before I started this live stream, I had to flex my jersey collection, because you have a lot of cheap ass motherfuckers who are out there, you know, doing this eBay stuff, trying to flip other eBayers' things. 1 second. I've had customers who have bought my baseball cards off me be honest with me and say, hey, listen, I'm looking to grade your card. First, they'll ask me, how come you didn't take the time to get this particular baseball card graded, and why are you selling it? It's because my collecting has shifted away from, unfortunately, the way the sports card hobby is going. What happened with Logan Paul recently with this $16.5 million Pokemon Illustrator nonsense, and what's gone on with PSA buying out SGC and Beckett. I just don't trust this hobby anymore, unfortunately. There are too many scams and cons going on, and it's all about milking the customer for every last dime. And we, the idiot consumer, have fallen for this trick. I haven't bought wax since this time last year. because you're getting less product for more money, and they keep stretching it out, and they keep sticking more parallels and more inserts and more legacy players that constantly stretch out, stretch out, stretch out. The breakers obviously are getting all the allocations. Fuck these breakers. Look what happened with this story recently of this one of one card that was stolen. Technically, it was still his card. Whether his customers paid for a team or paid for a player, that's up for debate. You guys can do your research on that. Apparently, it happened on Whatnot. And he took the one of one and deleted his account and all that kind of stuff. There's too much bullshit going on in this hobby. You know, theft is up across the board with sports cards, and especially in the Pokemon space. I have a whole playlist talking about these sort of things called hobby crimes right here on the channel, you know, where a Pokemon collector's home was robbed. I had to get a special lock for my door. Now I live in North Carolina. I have, and for those that want to nitpick, North Carolina General Assembly 14.51. Am I getting this correct? 14.51 dash, I'm sorry, 14-51.1.2.3, I believe, is the statute. That's the stand your ground law. Somebody comes into my home uninvited, they try to rob me. I have the right to deplete their life meter, if you understand what I'm saying. This is YouTube. I have to watch what I say, unfortunately. So I guess we have to speak in code. So there is no duty to retreat in one's home. But I run a business from my home. I'm an official LLC. So with all of that being said, you know, the hobbies across the board, you don't see this kind of stuff going on in like the Transformers collecting space, because it's understood that companies are going to make knockoffs. So you're going to get your scalpers trying to flip hard to get toys, but then here come the third party companies reissuing these toys for a cheaper price, so you still get your fix anyway. The only difference is you have to buy the Autobot or Decepticon logos. We saw that with Missing Link Optimus Prime. As soon as they came out with that, what did a third party do? They came out with a knockoff that's probably just as good as the original Missing Link Optimus Prime. All you had to do is just get a couple Autobot stickers to put on his shoulders, and boom, you got yourself a Missing Link Optimus Prime for half the price. Not promoting bootlegs, not promoting knockoffs. I'm just saying that's what they do. So the Transformers hobby is or collecting space is looking at all this shit going on over here and saying, you know what I mean? I would too. But with the amount of theft and cons and scams, you know, cracking slabs open, replacing, you know, PSA 10 cards or PSA 9 cards. And, you know, there was a story about this recently where some collector had, I think, Pokemon cards, and they all came back PSA 9s, but they went to the PSA vault or whatever the fuck it is, and PSA was offering to buy them cards back, and then all of a sudden, magically, those cards became PSA 10s. There's too much shit that goes on. And I've dealt with this in the beginning of when I started my sports card sales on eBay. That's why I use certain kinds of envelopes. That's why I use tamper-proof labels like these. Once you open up my card, that card is yours, you know? And I haven't had any real issues. Unfortunately, again, I have another playlist called The Chaos, that is UPS, USPS, FedEx, all that kind of stuff, because you got postal workers stealing mail. You have postal workers and UPS workers getting drunk on the job. These are facts. These are not allegations. These are facts. I have the news reports in that playlist, where you have UPS vehicles or USPS vehicles crashing in the middle of the highway or whatever it is because the drivers are falling asleep, or it's due to their own incompetence or whatever it may be. But most of it is because of theft. A lot of it is because of theft and the incompetence of the people working for the post office. I've had several cards. One happened recently, unfortunately. I've been pretty good at defeating these fake claims that cards weren't delivered and all that kind of stuff. But this most recent one, unfortunately, there was nothing I can do. I lost not just a Yoshinobu Yamamoto Mojo refractor rookie card, which was like a $15 card, but I had a refund. The eBay forced me to refund the customer. That was all automatic. And they took the money right out of my eBay funds. There are all sorts of shithead scams where people are trying to get shit for free. And you're going to have people that are out there who are going to try to rip off their fellow eBayers as well. And it's now happened twice in the past 48 hours because of that Daniel Jones jersey I'm selling. Now, let me just take a quick swig here. As a capitalist, I get it that people want the hustle. People want to make money. They want to be their own boss. They don't want to answer. But you got some slime ball motherfuckers that don't give a damn. They have no ethical or moral compass. They just want to suck your wallet dry. And I've been able to, at least through my sales, identify where those potential problems can be and have mitigated those problems to the best of my ability. You know, I take photos even before and I also have a centering tool right here in my drawer that I can actually center off the card, because if somebody's trying to swap out a card for a card that I'm selling, I would tell them, hey, listen, I took photos with a centering tool. Here's a centering tool. Let's see a photo of the card before I even agree to have you send it back to me. And they won't do it because they know they're full of shit. You know, I take photos of the cards before they leave, and I've challenged quite a few people. Let me see the card. I'll compare it to the photos I have, and of course they won't do it. You know, that's how it is, because everybody wants something for nothing, and that's not how the world works. And now I've had two yokels, probably some overweight, big, fat, Midwestern baseball cap wearing, Marlboro smoking, paella shrimp eating asshole or crawfish eating asshole trying to get over on an eBayer like me. I've sold close to 3,000 items at this point. And the two little dings that I have on my account should disappear very soon, where I'll have a 100% feedback rating again. You know what I mean? But I've built up enough experience very quickly to know what to look for with this kind of stuff. And you got people trying to rip off other eBayers now, which is kind of sick. You know, that Daniel Jones jersey, I literally paid around $400 for that jersey. That's not a joke. A lot of my jerseys I paid quite a few dollars for. My Bayern Munich jerseys, with shipping, taxes, unfortunately now with Trump's tariffs, you know, they're like $30 more expensive on top of what I would normally pay because of that. And it's not fair to us, you know, here in this country. I know what he's trying to do, but we get penalized as American citizens. For example, like the food prices, but I'm not going to get into the politics. But I paid $400 for that jersey. Daniel Jones was a shit player for the Giants. He did well last season, you know, after he got traded away or sent off or whatever the fuck. But I decided to sell my Daniel Jones jerseys, and I've been selling them for, you know, a pretty, what I consider to be a decent price. But then you'll have some asshole come out and say, well, I'm only willing, and the language is what gives them away, and the type of language that they used. I'll check their accounts. Like this happened this morning where I had a person who was clearly a flipper of sports jerseys, would probably scour the internet all day long, probably goes to flea markets, probably goes to Goodwill and places like that, and probably buys jerseys on the cheap and then flips them for 3 times more, whatever it is, and thought he can do that with me, and threw me a low ball of $60 for that jersey. I said no. Currently, right now, it's for sale at $82.99, I believe, plus shipping. So I said, you know, I'm not lowering my price any more than that. I paid a lot of money for this jersey. Yeah, Daniel Jones had a shit season. That's why I'm selling the jersey as a Giants fan. It sucks, but he was an awful quarterback for the Giants. He didn't fit in, and I want what I want for this jersey. Plain and simple. And then I had the second one message me about, and I'd say about, I'm on here now for a half hour according to the timer, messaging me for another lowball offer of $60. And I said, no, I paid $400 for this jersey. And then the person said, okay, LOL. So I said, LOL what? So this person said, there's no way this jersey was $400. I'm like, yes, it was. Go on Fanatics right now and go look it up. And I'm sure they didn't. You know, some jerseys, sometimes they do have sales on the the Nike Vapor Elite jerseys or the Nike Vapor Fuse jerseys, depending on which ones they have available. Now it's in the off season. I'm sure they have all kinds of discounts and sales, but a lot of jerseys never go on sale, you know, depending on the player and all that kind of stuff, especially if they're autographed and whatnot. But yeah, I paid $400 for this damn thing. And he said, no way that this jersey's $400. So in these two instances, I had no choice but to do like what I've done here on YouTube just recently, even in a live stream, when I start getting attacked by trolls, I had to go flex. So apparently I don't know what I'm talking about with my jerseys. So I took a photo of my around 100 jersey collection. And then I got another response, and I'm not going to repeat, here on camera because fuck that person. But you're not going to get over on somebody that has knowledge, that understands these things, because not everybody, you know, you got certain eBayers that do take advantage of like senior citizens, for example, you know, like the Antiques Roadshow crowd that has like an antique vase or jewelry. Some of that shit could be worth millions of dollars. You don't even know. You know, you see baseball cards on there sometimes, family collections that are worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and the person doesn't know. Then you go through some fucking shithead that you see here on YouTube, for example, a lot of these people who try to get everything for dirt cheap, and then meanwhile they're living in the lap of luxury, reselling this poor old person's stuff for 10 times what they paid for it. Fuck you people. How's that? Have a little honesty and some dignity with yourself, because people today got no shame. It's like my ex-girlfriend who opened up her legs like the fucking Holland Tunnel in New York. You know what I mean? Cars coming in and out of it, just like other men's dicks going in and out of her, you know, with that Frankenstein ugly looking zucchini head that I showed on camera in one of my most recent live streams. But we won't go there. But when you're trying to literally get over on another eBayer, I find that to be the most shameful behavior on eBay. You know, obviously, when you look at a person's feedback and you see the amount of sales, you see the amount of experience. I think my account is now, I think 3 or 4 years old. I've had this eBay account for a while, but I've been an official LLC for 2 years now, but I've turned it into a legitimate business. And I've learned a lot doing this. I see things from the retailer's point of view now, where it's like, what are you fucking kidding? Everything costs money. Even these thumbtacks that I use right here. Like I have a clipboard back there. I have all my tax forms. I have takeout menus and weird shit on there. Sometimes I put bills on there I forget to pay. You know what I mean? But thumbtacks cost money. These yellow Post-its, these cost me money. The markers I use for my sneaker, repaints, those cost me money. Everything I have here, every pen, every pencil, every roll of tape, every magic marker that I use, my scissors, everything costs money. And when I am running a business out of my home, I have to recoup those costs. And again, you got these 400-pound swollen beer-belly Midwestern eBayers that live in a trailer park, think they're going to get over on other eBayers, and it's not going to happen. Things cost what they cost. Yeah, I like things. I'm not just a eBay seller. I'm a consumer as well. You know how much shit I buy on eBay? eBay is a valuable resource to try to get things for a decent price. But when you're actually trying to fuck over your fellow eBayer, have a little bit more ethics and morals to how you conduct yourself on eBay. You know what I mean? And for the attitude that I've seen, even I had one gentleman, I will give this person credit, because this person knew their shit. I'm still trying to negotiate a price for that Barry Bonds auto that I'm selling. I've lowered my price as low as I'm going to go. Unfortunately, recently I've discovered that Topps in 2026, 2025, and Topps Chrome have released more Barry Bonds autos, which now, if you're a hobbyist, many of you will understand there's maybe a third of the paper, right? A third of the paper that you get in baseball is desired by baseball card collectors, right? And when Chrome comes out, everybody immediately shifts their attention to Chrome because Chrome is, the premium of the two, right? So once Topps released these Barry Bonds autos through Topps Chrome, and I've seen a ton of refractors, 25s, 50s. There was a black out of 10 that it was $1,500. I was tempted to, but I'm like, I gotta, thank God I did it. This black out of 10 Barry Bonds auto, it looks so sexy. It was one of the most beautiful baseball cards I've ever seen. You had Barry Bonds standing like this, looking away from the camera. He must have just hit a home run. He's in his Giants outfit. I think it was the Giants or it was the San Francisco. I think it was the Giants. And he's standing there, and it says San Francisco in black, in orange or gold letters with black strip, with the new hockey stick, they call it, like they used to back in the days. It's got the hockey stick design on it, right? And I think it was something out of 10. I think it was like 2 out of 10 or something. The auto was like, it was a beautiful Barry. I was like this. Yep, you're gone. Bye. Anyway, it's my channel and I'll do what I want. So with that being said, let's move past the fucking assholes, because it's going to be asshole hour any minute now. But anyway, we move on. So I saw this Barry Bonds card and I'm like, man, you know, I just might pull the trigger on this thing. But of course, you know, you got to resist temptation. So I bought the, you know, I still have my Barry Bonds auto and it is for sale over at my eBay store. But now I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Now the market is saturated with these Barry Bonds autos, and it's going to devalue the one, unless you're Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge. I mean, forget it, man. You know what I mean? Unless you're in possession, or the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie, or several other cards that are out there. You know, the Bo Jackson black and white upper deck, where he's got the baseball bat with the shoulder pad. So there's certain cards that will probably never devalue. They will always be desired by collectors. But now you have all these Barry Bonds autos out there. He's never going to get into the Hall of Fame, and that's the biggest caveat to this argument, that he's never going to get into the Hall of Fame. You have to take that into consideration. You know, you got great players like Don Mattingly. I do have a Don Mattingly 87 rookie in my collection, right? I'm sorry, was it 1984? I think it is. Forgive me for that. Excuse me. I think it's 84. I always forget, because there are a couple Don Mattingly rookies. There are a couple of them. You know, you got the Don Russ one, which I think is the most desirable one. But 1984. All right, so I correct myself there. So 1984. This is the Barry Bonds auto I'm currently selling. Now the market has been flooded, thanks to Topps and their infinite fucking goofy wisdom, by constantly, you know, there is a thing called shrinkflation, where unfortunately they're constantly putting more and more inserts in there, more and more parallels, more and more legacy players, and it's designed for the collector to constantly buy, and the pool or the rubber band has been stretched so tight that if you're looking for good hits, you have to and that's the goal, is suckers like I am and like the rest of you are, who are collectors, to constantly buy more and more and more, and you're getting less and less and less in those boxes. Look at what's happening with the Breakers situation. They are being allocated more and more product, cases and cases and cases and cases. I made a decision to go with dead player autos. Those are the ones you have a shot increasing it. Yeah, you know, I agree with that assessment. That's why my collecting has now shifted towards junk wax and legacy players. You know, my slab collect. I only have a handful of slabs, and you're looking at them right here. I sold off all of my modern and ultra modern because I just don't see it going anywhere. Unfortunately, it's all hype. The only one I kept was my Paul Skeens Mojo Fractor, red out of 5, his Bowman Prospect. But, you know, Shohei Ohtani, he's a giant. If you're a collector, I mean, this is his batting Bowman Chrome rookie. There are now over 5,000 of these, and they're still selling for $3,500. That's insane. You know what I mean? But I'm a New York Yankees fan. There's the Judge. There's my Donnie Baseball. There's my King Griffey right there. You got to have the Griffey. You know, you got to have Skeens, because Skeens is a beast. And then you got to have Shohei, because this guy is just unworldly. You know, so there's certain target cards that now my attention is starting to focus elsewhere from ultra modern, because it's all hype. Cooper Flag. Everybody's going after Cooper Flag. If he gets hurt, down go those cards. Let's just say if Shohei Ohtani gets Tommy John again, down go his cards. It happened with Corbin Carroll. I sold off all my Corbin Carrolls. You know, he had a great first season, was Rookie of the Year unanimously. His second year, Anthony Volpe, same thing. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Colton Cowser. So little by little, I've been liquidating all my modern and ultra modern because it's just not worth it anymore. So with all that being said, it just reaches a point where you have to look at things constructively and look at things objectively. So, but again, when it comes down to it, when you have shameless eBayers trying to rip off another eBayer, I mean, really, I hate, I've had a lot of assholes take advantage of me over the years. And this year I took a vow that I am not going to let people take advantage of me ever again. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to allow it, and now, because of certain things that have happened, it's only made me much more the wiser to look out for this kind of shit and this kind of behavior. So when it comes down to it, um, I'm able to detect it, call it out, and avoid it. But, I understand that there are people out there that don't have a lot of money, that want things for cheap. They want things, as inexpensive as they can, because you do have people that do work very hard for their money. They can't afford certain things. I get all that. I'm not trying to be like a Ken Golden here, because what he said about collectors today, that basically, you're too poor to afford my stuff, my PSA slabs and all of that shit, and golden auction cards, and that's a mess. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to, try to create that kind of context. What I'm saying is that, my customer base I've got to know quite well. And I deal mostly with the lower end stuff and mid-range stuff, and this Barry Bonds card is probably the second most expensive card that I've sold or I'm trying to sell. The biggest one I've sold so far was a Jackson Merrill mini diamond auto out of 50 from Bowman. So I understand that people, they don't want to pay these exorbitant prices, and if I have some cards that some, cool collectors want, they don't want to pay those crazy prices, and I immediately offer people 10% discounts, and I've had the same customers coming back again and again and again and again, and it's been great so far. But when you have other eBayers that are literally trying to rip off another eBayer, like what I've seen in the past 24 to 48 hours, I find it, very disgusting. I find it disgusting and it's distasteful. So, you have to be a little bit more ethical. I mean, I buy off of my fellow eBayers. A lot of my stuff, like my supplements, I buy off of fellow eBayers. My It stays in-house basically. The envelopes I use for my baseball cards, I buy off of my fellow eBayers. The tamper-proof labels, the slabs, all of that stuff. It all stays in-house. So money's constantly circulating in this little ecosphere. But you do have those pieces, low-life dirtbag pieces of shit, who can't see their dicks because their bellies are so swollen that they look like they're actually fucking pregnant. That they're eating too much bratwurst and drinking too much Vorsteiner, or engaging in, swimming in gluttony of their own design. You know what I mean? And these people they got no shame, they have no ethics, no morals, no values or anything like that, and it's fucking gross. It's disgusting. And you have to be able to identify that kind of stuff. And you got some nasty, nasty, nasty people. And then unfortunately I have to flex because nobody's going to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to my collections. It's ridiculous and absurd. Again, I've been collecting jerseys for well over 20 years. Same thing with toys. I've been collecting toys for well over 20 years. I sold off a huge collection. Video games I got away from because I'm just not a video game guy. I got the retro mini systems there. I've got the NES mini. I've got the SNES mini, the Intellivision Flashback, and the Sega Genesis mini. I don't want big game systems. They take up a lot of room. The games are too expensive. So you got these little emulator boxes. So I went that route. And I have to be really bored for me to play video games because my time is better suited to taking care of my home, trying to make some money, that sort of thing, keeping on top of my game and just continuing to improve and, sweeping society's dirt underneath the rug that I walk on with them underneath it, as it should be with certain people and certain things, But that comes at a cost. You're going to have people coming after you all the time. You're going to have people who are going to attack you. I'm never going to claim that I'm better than somebody, that I'm cuter than somebody, or have more money than somebody. I'm just, listen, I fart, burp, and shit just like everybody else, man. I'm a turd flinging monkey, just like the person that lives either side of me, upstairs, downstairs, next door, across the pond, in another country somewhere, in another state here in this country. I'm no different than anybody else. And that's a fact, but it gets to a point where it comes to what you do that really reveals who certain people are. And unfortunately, in the world of eBay, you're going to see this kind of shameful behavior as well, where everybody thinks they're going to get something for nothing, and that's not how the world works. I don't go sending my wife begging for medical benefits when I'm driving, an imported German car and a motorcycle, shit like that. You know what I mean? Or doing drugs with my wife and then giving birth to an autistic kid and then blaming everybody else for, being more popular and more likable and more personable than they are, because they're fucking miserable with their lives, especially if you move in with that woman. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Whatnot is a disgrace, man. People have been asking me about Whatnot in a lot of my videos and live streams, and I choose not to go on to Whatnot because there are too many scams. It's not just Whatnot. It happens on eBay. I've had people trying to card swap on me. I've had people try to claim their cards were never delivered. And clearly, I get alerts on my phone when cards are delivered. So that's a fail. I got people trying to swap out cards from my envelopes. I take photos of those cards. I've got the centering tool right here. This is a valuable tool, by the way, to prevent that kind of shit, because I'll try to swap my centered card with their off-centered card, and I say, okay, send me some photos. And then I'll send them photos of my card, and then all of a sudden they block me because they know they fucked up. Fuck around, find out. You know what I mean? But you're going to have people like that. I understand that there are people that are out there, that true collectors. You got true New York Giants fans that want, jerseys for cheap. They are very expensive. Buying jerseys is an expensive venture. After a certain time, with a lot of my German soccer jerseys, I end up selling them. Unfortunately, because of my inexperience in the past, I've had to throw out a lot of them because I didn't take care of them properly. I didn't use the right soaps. I'd wring them out and then I would break the plastic or, break the patches on the sleeves. And that's money wasted, because then I could have sold them on eBay. And of course, with, trial and error, you have to fail to succeed, and people don't like you standing up after you fail. They want you to stay down in the mud. Fuck that. I say the harder you fall, the faster you get back up on your feet, and you keep fighting until you can't fight no more, period. So with that being said, you're going to deal with this kind of stuff on eBay, and to see it coming from my fellow eBayers is a real shock. The sporting goods and sporting collectibles is probably the most slimy, skeevy, low end. I don't know any adjectives to, describe. Well, you look at Steiner Sports, you walk in there, I already can see the type of person that works behind the counter. There's a stereotype I've developed now in the back of my brain. They look like that dude from The Simpsons that runs the hobby shop with the big beer belly and the t-shirt with the bald head and long hair. That's what I expect. A burnt out 70s, cave dweller, a knuckle dragger. That's who I expect to be behind the counter. And all of them got baseball hats. You know what I mean? So, but, to see this kind of thing going on eBay, and this is something new that I've experienced only recently, where literally other eBayers who are professional flippers are literally trying to rip off other eBayers. And then when you call them out on that, that's when they get fucking nasty. And their attitudes right off the bat, especially with these two dimwits over the past 48 or 72 hours, whenever it is, especially after this live stream, with a nasty message that they sent me about that Daniel Jones jersey. It's like, well, guess what? I took a photo of my jersey collection, and of course I got the response I was expecting, which was a nasty response, which, well, tough shit. Tell me again how I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I have a jersey collection. I think I know a thing or two about this stuff. Again, I'm not claiming to be an expert. It's just experience built over time. But you see this kind of stuff all over the place in the sports card hobby, You see it going on in, baseball card collecting, with sporting goods and sporting memorabilia. Even this baseball that I bought over at Walmart. I don't even know if they still sell these at Walmart or not, but this is an official Major League Baseball. And you'll have assholes that are out there that'll claim that this was actually hit by a baseball player. It was a foul ball, and try to pass this off as something that it's not without any proof or any evidence, and try to rip people off. Unless you know what you're looking for with this type of stuff. If it was hit by a baseball bat, you would see a scuff on here of some type, or a dent on here of some type. Most baseball players hit the ball at about, I don't know how many joules. Like I really don't know how to measure impact, so I'm going to say they're probably swinging the bat at like 90 to 100 miles an hour. You would see marks on that ball, and there'd be a certificate of authenticity. But even that stuff gets faked. Sports card and sports memorabilia of any type is probably the most scum business you can get into. And very few people are honest about it. As a matter of fact, a fellow YouTuber, Western New York Cards, called out the sports card hobby quite well about what's been going on with the card grading and all that stuff. And much credit to him for being brave enough to say the things that he said, because the hobby's falling apart. Everything's about hype. Everybody's trying to make a quick buck. Players over time, like Daniel Jones for the Giants, why I'm selling that jersey. He underperformed. The fans were pissed when he was drafted by the Giants. Nobody wanted him as a Giants fan. I'll never forget it. Everybody was like, oh no, you could have waited for a couple more rounds to go after him, and he never fit in. You got to wait for a while and see what happens, but he already came in with a reputation, and then he went out with a reputation. People like Shohei Ohtani he's earned his place. He's definitely going to the Hall of Fame. There's no question at this point. At this point, no matter what he does, he's Hall of Fame material. If Paul Skeens doesn't get Tommy John, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's already got his first Cy Young award. Who knows how many Cy Youngs he's going to win. He's potential MVP material as well. You know what I mean? Ken Griffey Jr. never won a World Series. Hall of Famer, though. His reputation's secure. You have to know what to look for with this stuff. That's why I decided to sell that jersey for the price that I set it at. And when I have people trying to get something because they're looking to flip it, I don't care if people flip baseball cards off of me. It's happened. I've seen it. It does happen. And I've had good, honest customers say, hey, you know what, that card that you're selling, I'm going to send it for grading. Do you mind? No, do what you want. I just don't have the time to do it. I don't have the patience to sit down and go through all of the comping and, all that kind of stuff, because you do have to put an estimated value of a particular card to these companies, so that this way, I don't know if it's insurance or whatever it is, liability, whatever. I mean, there's a whole process that goes behind it. But, don't come at me and tell me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff, And when I flex, I flex. And this other idiot that was on eBay clearly did not like me flexing because, well, I made him look like a dumbass, like I do with most people. And I'm sorry to have that kind of position, but sometimes you deserve what's coming to you when it comes to that sort of thing. So, it's like the people of my former home of New York with this Mamdani. Now he's looking to raise taxes and property taxes. And hey, they like voting for leftists. You are what you eat. Meanwhile, good little me sitting over here is only paying 7% sales tax on things. There's no state income tax here, which is great. So who's making bad decisions here? I'll just do like what my dad used to do and just fix my mustache. So with all that being said, folks, just keep an eye out for this sort of stuff. It's awful to see how things are just getting worse and worse and worse. Opossum Bud and Rattle Pokemon are great content creators. They talk about the same kind of shit that I do, except it's in the Pokemon TCG collecting space with One Touch and all that sort of thing. And a YouTuber, his home got robbed. And he had sealed vintage boxes of Pokemon and graded slabs like this. If anybody comes walking through my door, I've got the Second Amendment on my side. And You know, I also have North Carolina General Assembly 14-52.1.2 and point 3 on my side. You know, the collecting space, especially when it comes to resale value, is just getting worse and worse and worse. So I missed the beginning to know what happened with the Barry bonds. So this is the Barry bonds I'm currently selling over at my eBay store. Here's another annoying thing, and this is solely directed at sports card collectors. They're so fucking picky because this is in an SGC slab. What's going on, Shaggy? If anyone breaks into my house, I got double-barreled Dave by my bed. Oh, I am well prepared in my home with lots of goodies to play with. I got lots of toys to play with should anybody breach my door. You know, but lately, like I said, the theft in Pokemon alone has gone up. You can check my playlist on my channel, the hobby crimes playlist, and you see this now with Pokemon. Pokemon theft is skyrocketing. It's scary. And now Rattle Pokemon and Possum Bud released videos about this one YouTuber who's a Pokemon collector who has graded slabs. His home was robbed. It's crazy what's going on, that people now are taking to theft. If they can't get what they want one way, they go and they do it that way. But to get back to the Barry bonds here that I'm selling, they're so picky because of the slab and no other reason. I've seen the population reports on this particular image. There are variants of this image and parallels of this image. I think there's like an out of 99 and out of 25. There's a 1 of 1. There's red out of 5 of this card, for example. You know, and those are worth, you know, the cost if you're able to gem them. But these cards are extremely, for whatever reason, the paper autos of Barry bonds from Flagship are very difficult to gem because the centering on every example I've ever seen, even ones that are on eBay right now that are raw, look at all of them. They're all off center in some way or another. And given how fucked up PSA is these days with their grading, I bet you if I would have sent this to PSA, this would have been a 6 or a 7. Guaranteed. Getting an 8.5 from SGC, I find it to be generous. If I were to send it to Beckett, it may get another 8.5, it may get a 9, or it may get an 8, it may get a downgrade. I'm lucky I got this in an 8.5. You don't see many of these graded. But again, people are trying to get something for nothing. Oh, it's in an SGC holder. You know, I'm gonna do the voice. I'm gonna do the voice. You know, I'm gonna do the voice. Well, it is in an SGC holder, and collectors don't really like SGC because of the holder and the label. I'm gonna offer you. I'm willing to pay $700 for it. These cards raw are going for like $1,000, and I'm selling this thing at 8.5 for 1,000. I think 1,059. I've lowered my price as far as I'm gonna go, and I've had several people message me saying, well, it's because of the slab, and then, you know, they have a PSA. Yeah, but that's the PSA one. There's one in the population. I think it's a orange out of 25 that landed a PSA 10, and there's only one of them. They're very difficult to gem. And you're comparing that card to this? It's the same thing that goes with my Aaron Judge. There's an SGC 10 Aaron Judge refractor sold for like $1,500. A PSA one sold for $2,200. I still find that I won when it comes to this card because I only paid $300 for it because the holder was broke. And I resubmitted it to SGC and it came back a 10 and a brand new holder. And I like the way the card looks. This particular card looks good in this holder. But man, people are fucking just, some people on eBay are just fucking cheap. You know, I hate to say it, and I hate to word it like that because, you know, I got a lot of good customers that break their ass. I know my customer base. A lot of people are blue collar, they're older, they're retired. A lot of people are disabled, they're on permanent disability, they got this going, they got that going, and, you know, I'm sympathetic to that kind of stuff, man. You know, my customer base is very, very blue collar, you know, and they probably break their ass all week, and they look forward to just sitting down, turning on the TV, watching a ball game, and then noodle through their card collection. like I do sometimes. I'll pick up the same 6 slabs that I got here, or I'll go through my father's vintage when I'm missing my father, right, and just thumb through his baseball cards, thinking about him. And you got people that are like that, but then, like I said, you got the pond scum that's out there that are trying to get something for nothing. That's not how it works. Sometimes you have to pay up. That's how capitalism works. And I have a business to run. And what I do is no different than like the restaurant business. I reserve the right to throw you out if you're not behaving properly in my establishment. Or if I ran a bar, I reserve the right to kick your ass out and 86 you, which is an old school cowboy term. You've been 86th. So, if you're drunk and you're unruly and you're violent, I reserve the right to throw you out as a business owner. And as a business owner, I have the right to reserve my prices. And if you don't like it, don't buy it. And people that have bought my stuff off of me, I've negotiated with quite a few customers to get, to come to some sort of agreement on a price. It happens all the time. Actually, I got 2 orders right here. There's a Ellie De La Cruz Mojo Fractor I sold today. And this is one that I lowered the price on just recently, and somebody pulled the trigger on it. It sold for $13.59. That's a color matched J-Rod. This is out of $199 from 2024 Topps Chrome. Is that update or is that? No, that's from Series 1. So, do you have the make it offer thing up, or you got to talk to all? I rather communicate with my customers. I don't like best offers or anything like that because they usually go nowhere. I rather wait to see, how many people. Let's just say if I'm selling, I'm just going to pull a card at random here, like this Jason Dominguez pink refractor. So like if I were to sell this for like $3 on eBay, I'll get a watcher, 2 watchers, and again I got the same customers coming back again and again and again for the most part. Thank God for that, And I'll list this card as a buy it now for $3, let's just say. And then it'll have 1 watcher, 2 watchers, 3 watchers, and then I'll wait for the card to sit for a day or 2. Excuse me, and then when I have some free time, I'll comp the card. They now have, if you're an eBay seller like me, I have the early version of the card scanner. They actually use Card Ladder, which I didn't realize when I actually did a video about this on the channel. Their scanner is what's the terminology I'm looking here? They use Card Ladder's system through eBay to scan cards. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll wait for a little bit. And if I see that other sellers, because there is an option in there when you scan a card prior to listing, when you're actually trying to comp the card in the listing itself, you press the option and you'll see a breakdown if other cards have sold recently. And I'll see, let's just say February 2nd, somebody sold one of these for $2.75. So I'll sell mine for like $2.79 or something like that and adjust the price a little bit. Like that's how I've been doing it. And then if I have enough watchers, I'll throw a 10% offer to those customers, and that's how I've been doing it. And it's been successful so far. I'm not going to get into the dollars and cents of how much I've made in the past 3 months, but it's been a success. That model that I've been using, I'll wait for a couple people to watch the card, and then I'll wait to see what happens if the card adjusts in price. If it appreciates or depreciates, I'll adjust the price. And then if I have 3 or 4 watchers, I have my eBay account set to automatically offer whoever's watching that card a 10% discount or an opportunity to get it for 10% less. And then before you know it, almost every day since Christmas time, I've had at least, at minimum, 1 card sold from my eBay store. And I had a whole bunch of stuff that I got to the post office today. I had another Cleveland Indians jersey sell. I've had another home field advantage. Fernando Tatis actually was, if I remember correctly, that sold, and a couple other cards sold. Jung-Hoo Lee, Green Wave out of 99 sold. So, and again, I would offer 10% discounts and adjust the price based on other sellers, what they sold their cards for, and try to be reasonable that way. And that model has worked. It just takes time. That's the only thing. But yeah, the whole best offer thing I don't like. I really don't like. And again, true sports card collectors, they're very picky. They're always looking for names, which I understand, of course. Everybody's collecting Shohei. Everybody's collecting Cal Raleigh. Everybody's collecting, like Aiden Miller. I actually have an Aiden Miller Orange Mojo Fractor out of 25, his Bowman prospect, and he's supposed to be doing pretty good. So I'm sitting on that right now. Spencer Jones, even though he played today for the Yankees, the chances of him being promoted are next to nothing, and I had, an SGC 10 Mojo refractor out of 25 that I sold months ago because I don't see him getting promoted. So, the decision making that I have, like I watch things very carefully and I'm very, very picky when it comes to my listings. But when I have one or two jackasses, again, I've already lowered the price of this card considerably. There are cards out there that are raw, and I think there's only 355 of these that were made as far as the base auto is concerned. There are sellers selling the raw version of this card for like $1,500, in some cases more. And mine is being sold for $1,000 and it's been graded. So it makes no sense. And then it's about the holder, and nobody likes SGC, and it's too big, and it's too thick, and blah, 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 blah. It's always something, But it's when they start attacking. Like I said, I've negotiated quite a few sales for certain stuff. Like today with the whatchamacallit there, the second Cleveland Indians Ricky Vaughn jersey that I sold, which was a vintage Rawlings. I had two of them. I had a size 44 that was completely decked out, and it sold within minutes of me listing it, which was a shock. Then the second one was an incomplete jersey. I had the template and the numbers for it, but I never got around to having the numbers and the nameplate attached. But the customer messaged me, said, "Thank you so much for selling this jersey. I've been looking for one of these forever. Where'd you get the template from? Because I want to have custom-made jerseys." And I think I bought that template on Etsy a couple of years ago. I don't know if they would still sell it or not, but I believe I bought it on Etsy. But, to get messages like that when my customers saying thank you for helping me, thank you for agreeing on a price and all that kind of stuff, because some of them vintage Indians jerseys, in certain sizes, you can still get them for like $100 and something to almost $300. So I priced mine accordingly. And like I said, the two of them sold immediately as soon as I listed it. So don't tell me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And people can be, let me tell you, certain eBayers can be really nasty. They can be really, really fucking nasty when they want to be. So just give me 1 second here. Let me saw a notification pop up here. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's an Entertainment Earth here. I got to turn off Entertainment Earths. I've been getting notifications from Beckett. I've been getting notifications from Entertainment Earth, TF Source. All the. I still haven't submitted to Beckett. I would love. It's just I can't trust the grading companies until all this mess calms down with PSA, and now with this new. What is it? He's a New York senator, I believe, who now put out two statements about the potential of PSA being a monopoly. I can't trust the grading companies, I should say, plural, until all of that mess gets straightened out. So my dad's vintage cards are going to be sitting in limbo, unfortunately. But yeah, life goes on, eBay goes on, and This coming week is the last week of February, and I have probably 300 or 400 cards still that I need to list. I still have about another 100 or 200 that need to be sleeved. X-fractors, parallels, prisms, you know, things like that that I'm probably going to have to buy. I mean, I still have maybe 70 top loaders, but I do have a lot of prisms. I do have a lot of X-fractors. I still have a lot of parallels, paper parallels, Mojo refractors. So there's going to be some good stuff coming up. You know, maybe I'll drop another big boy card, but it's frustrating, man, sometimes on eBay because, you know, I'm trying to help my customers not spend a ton of money. Unfortunately, and recently I've had to raise my price on shipping because of the continued nonsense that goes on with the post office, unfortunately, losing cards. And after that last Yoshinobu Yamamoto card that actually legitimately was lost in the mail, I brought it to the post office over here. It disappeared off the face of the earth. So the customer in that case was correct. But I either this post office, because this post office was investigated twice now, and I filed a complaint against himself because of the fucking. Got to watch what I say here because I'll be labeled a racist, of course. But certain people, they think because of who and what they are, that they're entitled to treat people badly until I pull out my union card, you know, and tell them that, you know, listen, you guys gave up your collecting bargaining agreement. You are a union. Don't tell me you're not a union, you know. So don't try to lord over me. I'm a union man. I know how you people work, and I know your attitudes. So don't fucking talk down to me like I'm an ordinary citizen. Here's my union card from 1998 that I still pay dues on. Where's my fucking cards? Here's the printout of the tracking of that order. It was a customer of mine in Florida that a whole box of cards disappeared. There had to be like 12 cards, autographs, all that stuff in that order, and I had to refund the customer, unfortunately. And this is a regular returning customer of mine. But that's a whole other story. I don't even want to get into that. But besides all that stuff, you know, I do enjoy doing this stuff, but the customer is not always right, especially in today's world. That might have been true back in the 80s and 90s, but now the customer is not right. You look at my former home of New York, you think those customers who have been rioting in these malls in the Bronx and in Long Island, you think they're right? Of course not. These smash and grabs that are going on, and, you know, mom and pop shops that are trying to make a living selling, cards with cartoon characters on them in the form of Pokemon and TCG. Are those people right? This is the world we live in, folks. And then people like me are the bad guy? Bullshit. And to the people of my former home, you're getting your just desserts because of what this fucker's planning on doing. So what's it like to have a 9% property tax increase? You voted for this asshole. Vengeance for me always comes in some form or another to people. It always does in some form or another. And when I read and see certain things, and certain things are told to me by certain people off camera through WhatsApp or whatnot, I have to laugh because their projection of their anger, you know, towards their fucking false narratives and bullshit, and I see how they're being forced to live by their own hand versus how I live down here. I just go like this. But anyway, with all that being said, but we'll see. We'll see if I decide to pull this guy down. I just might pull this card off of my listings because it's been sitting there for a while. I lowered the price several times, and I'm not willing to give it up for what people have been asking for it. That's nonsense. And I think that's why people are I never really understood the option to watch an item. I think a lot of that has to do with social media. You know, because there are YouTube channels that do like a top 10 eBay sales. I think Wax Pack God, Graded Card Investor, 10 Club Cards. Well, 10 Club Cards, he focuses more on fanatics. But, you have several content creators here on YouTube that focus on eBay auctions and, sports card sales and things like that, and Pokemon sales. So I think those are the ones that are watching these cards, and they'll sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there, and the card doesn't move. You know what I mean? So, but in this case, I think it's because, in this particular case, I think it's just because the market now is so saturated with, and also, yeah, the fee. Oh, that fee sucks. Yeah, yeah, the 13% fee on top of that. And then if you promote, and I promoted some of my sports cards last month, and man, I was moving cards left and right. But you tack on at minimum, I think the minimum is what, 2%. You can correct me on that. So now you're paying 15% of your haul plus taxes and everything. That's a big chunk of money. Let me tell you, you're losing close to 20% of your income on eBay. Taxes, fees. If you promote a listing that's at minimum 2%, you're losing right there to try to push yourself up into the algorithm. But again, an eBay store like mine that's as big as it is ends up getting automatically, some of my listings get promoted to the top anyway, depending on a card. Like if I were to look up this card, if I were to log out of my eBay account, this card would pop up on top of the listing because of my feedback ratings, or would at least be one of the top 3 that you would immediately see. So it all depends, man. But unfortunately, like I said, the market now is so saturated. Yeah, exactly. It's almost 20%. It's 20%. I mean, yeah, it's a tax write-off. You can get a pretty decent tax write-off. If you go on eBay and you print out your 1099 and you print out your annual breakdown, like you get it month per month per month per month, like I did with H&R Block. Plus, if you keep your physical receipts, like if I buy Scotch tape or if I buy shipping boxes, I keep those receipts. That adds up too. The stickers, the envelopes that I close up the cards in, the tamper-proof labels, the fragile stickers, all that stuff, man. It adds up quick. And people don't, and these idiots out there don't seem to realize it costs money. I was never conscious about this stuff until I started doing this, man. You really have to be careful. You really have to be careful what you do. So, but when it comes, again, like I said, it's not every eBayer, but there's 1 or 2 of them that are out there that are just, they're cons, they're slime balls, they're trying to get over, they're trying to flip your items. And again, I appreciate some of my customers that are honest with me, that say, hey, listen, man, that like the Yoshinobu Yamamoto, unfortunately, that got lost. That was a legitimate loss by the post office. And I felt bad for the customer because the customer was real excited about it in our communications, but the post office, of course, dropped the ball and lost that card. So now I'm out a Yoshinobu card and I'm out $15. So that's twice the loss. It's a lot of risk also that goes into this. Because once the cards leave my hands, 99, this is now the first loss I took like that. So there is a way to prevent these fake claims that the cards were never delivered. But this one, because I even checked myself and the card did not move, which means that my post office is fucking around again. And I won't bring cards to the post office anymore after hours. I bring my cards now before the post office closes because I don't know who's picking up mail at nighttime. I don't know who's. You look at my former home of the criminal, radical, fascist, socialist, leftist, communist, Marxist, hashtag Me Too, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, anti-white, anti-parent, anti-Trump, anti-police, bedbug infested, crime-ridden regime of the COVID concentration camp, illegal immigrant refugee camp, pro-diddler, pro-pedophile, pro-cross-dresser, rioting city of New York, where now people are probably going to pay 9% property tax because they voted for a radical Muslim leftist Marxist who probably makes his wife walk 3 feet behind him and beats her with a stick, allegedly. But that's what they do overseas. If you don't believe me, search the internet and watch what they do. But, they talk about misogyny in New York. Well, which culture has the most misogyny in it? Who are the ones that stone their women and bury people up to their necks and light people on fire? But anyway, with all that being said, it's sad, really, across the board. It really is. It really is. It's really sad. But yeah, 20%. It's almost 20%. And then you got to pay for the Scotch tape. And I try to get this stuff in bulk. Like now I have a website that I get my top loaders that I pay. I think I buy them 500 at a time. And I'm only paying like $35 to $40 with shipping, which is cheap. Because you go to Target and you try to get like 50 top loaders, they're already like $12, whatever they are. So I get them in bulk, which is great. And I get a returning customer discount. Like I always buy my Scotch tape in bulk, for example. And this is a tax write-off because it's for the business, for example. I was never aware of this stuff. Even a part of my rent, I think when it comes to your rent and other expenses, I think you're allowed to claim 10% of your rent if you work from home. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it, and people don't realize that stuff, man. Everybody thinks people think everything is for free, and it's not. Everything has a cost to it. And you got people that are just fucking just nasty. They are just nasty. And then you catch them trying to flip your stuff. Like I said, the one jackass before I started doing this live stream who was trying to buy that Daniel Jones jersey, actually, well, two of them, and you go onto their account, and what are they doing? Selling sports jerseys for $200, $300 themselves, and trying to get something for nothing to flip. They are the worst. Anything that has to do with the sports, with sports in general, and Pokemon right now are the worst. Pardon me. That's why sneaker culture died, and why a lot of people got tired of having to pay these high school dropout hip-hop yo-yo G's with their pants down, walking around grabbing their crotches like they got testicular cancer with a fake limp, thinking that they're, some sort of gangster G, you know what I mean, selling sneakers out of the back of their car. And that's why sneaker culture died. And now the old CEO from Nike came back and now have been flooding the market with Nikes and Nike Air Jordans and all that kind of stuff, because nobody wants to pay $300, $400, $500 more for a $250 pair of shoes. People get sick of that stuff. And even with the baseball cards I sell, I try to be as humane about it and as cheap as I can, and I've been successful doing that so far. But people eventually do get fed up with all of it. So sneaker culture died because of that. The sports card hobby, if it keeps going down this route, it will eventually collapse on its own weight. Ken Golden insulting everybody by saying that, you're too poor to afford my stuff. Well, asshole, there are a lot of people out there that are blue collar workers that don't make a lot of money, and all they want to do is buy a car. But then again, you have to be careful, because you're going to have that one asshole that's trying to get their hands on this for as cheap as they can and then immediately flip it on eBay. And you have to look out for stuff like that. I want to make my money too. That's the way the world works. This is a capitalist society. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Well, you have to pay the piper sometimes. I don't like it either. There are cards that I want. Like I said, I saw this Barry Bonds. It was a black out of 10 from 2025 Chrome. It looked, oh man, the color matching on it. This is one of the most beautiful Barry Bonds autos I've ever seen. I was it sold immediately. I was pissed I didn't get my hands on it. There might be another one up there. I know there's an orange version of that I think is out of 25. But you got to pay the piper. That's how it works. I am dumb, but I am not so dumb. And then you got these assholes that wait for people to die, and then they go to these storage units, buying up these storage units for cheap, not realizing that a living, breathing person once owned the things contained therein. That's why I'm glad my dad never put things in storage, why everything was in his house before he passed. And now I have a big chunk of his vintage baseball cards. My brother's got his comic books. I have some of his comic books. But After that, there's really not much more to say on this topic. It's just, it gets really, it just, that part of it gets annoying and frustrating to me. It's not just the fumbling and the misguided behavior of the post office constantly losing orders. But, you have people that are out there that are clearly trying to get over. So, and until the card, like this Shohei Ohtani, if I wanted, I could sell this right now for $3,500. Because that's what they're going for right now. I mean, whether people like that or not, that's what they're going for. Thank God I bought mine when I did. I didn't pay that, thank God. It's like this, and I talked about, I think I put this in my community page, where a red refractor, this is the Mojo refractor, Paul Skeens, his Bowman Chrome Prospect. Thank God I bought this when I did. I won this at auction for, I think it's $1,120 plus shipping. And the red refractor of this sold recently through Fanatics for $3,200. I can sell this right now as a Mojo refractor for more than that if I chose to. It's my card. I could do what I damn please with it. But I'm not going to be an asshole about it if I can come down on my cost a little bit. Not only do customers come back because they appreciate you giving them a discount, but a lot of it is all about reputation, man. And given my the way my eBay store, the way I run it, and all that kind of stuff, a lot of it is reputation based as well. That's why I do live streams of me packing cards and do my YouTube shorts with orders going out the door. You don't see people being transparent like that. And I keep getting customers coming back, and coming back. Not to dox any, I'm not going to dox people, but there's the latest shipping label for this card right there. I keep getting the same customers coming back, and I thank you for that, and I deeply appreciate it. It means a great deal to me, and it doesn't go on, it goes on stuff. I mean, I'm not sponsored. This channel's not monetized. All this stuff that I buy to review here on the channel, like when I did the most recent live review I did was of Studio Series Soundwave. You know what I mean? I buy all that stuff myself to keep the content going, to keep the channel going. The jerseys I buy myself through my eBay sales, and when I'm done using them and I lose interest in any of this stuff, off it goes to eBay to be sold to somebody. If I can save them a few bucks or try to help them spend as little money as possible and everybody's happy, the thank you messages that I get on eBay are just incredible. That you're going to have that one or two dicks that comes out from the fucking woodwork, from underneath the rock from which they live, to try to literally rip off another eBayer. And that's not going to happen, folks. Not on my watch. I've been pretty successful so far. So, anyway, folks, with all that being said, I think I've already said my piece. I'm going for an hour and a half. I really don't have much more to say on the topic, but thank you to those that have supported the channel and my eBay store and all that kind of stuff. Many of you are eBay sellers as well. There are a lot of you I've seen that commented in previous videos and live streams and stuff who are also selling things on eBay, and you deal with the same crap that I do. And I'm very, very empathetic to that sort of thing. When you find that people are literally trying to rip you off. Unfortunately, that's the way the world is these days. You can't have fucking honesty anymore. You really can't. And again, for those that are returning viewers, may I refer you to everything that I've gone through in the past 14, 15 months, with the exception of my father and my buddy dying. All of the bullshit that I've had to deal with was caused, and this is not narcissism, this is fact, because I've got the paperwork to prove it, other people's bad behavior. Just like with my ex-girlfriend recently, who I caught here on YouTube with an image of her with a fucking picklehead looking man. And I'm the bad guy? I don't think so. Don't think so. All right, folks, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you very much to all of those, who participate in these live streams. I really appreciate it. And, you know, if you're eBay sellers like me, you know, I deal with the same crap that you do. You know, I mean, 13% off the top is a lot. You promote your listings, that's another 2%. And then you go with the supplies, the envelopes, the stamps, all of that kind of stuff. You're talking almost 20% of your take. That's a lot of money. And eBay tends to defend these scam artists and con artists. It sucks. But again, to those assholes that are out there, until this thing leaves my hands, until somebody pays for this stuff, I have every right to charge what I want to charge. It's still mine to do as I please. But I try to be reasonable. I try to be understanding as a collector, as a hobbyist, as someone that sees things from both sides of the coin. You know, I try my best to negotiate prices with my customers, and it's been working so far, and I hope it continues to do so in the future. And I thank you all for that. Everybody else, I'm your host, the Carolina Collector, folks. Enjoy your weekend.